Greetings. Hello, how are you melting today? If it's anything like the temperature here today. This is Saturday what are we on, the 2nd, 3rd? I don't know. But I wanted to tell you, well, I've been requested to make a video on the topic of boundaries. But before we get to that, I'd like to just share yesterday with you maybe 2 years ago, I made a video talking about looking at what the system does, and it sets up a win-win. It's all about pick a side. Doesn't matter which side you pick as long as you pick a side, because it creates divide and conquer. So you can take that blueprint, so you set yourself up a win-win. So Friday, which must have been the 1st, so it must be the 2nd today. Fridays I go to Monchique and go to the grocery store, get supplies and cat food and things. And I had a message saying I'd like to meet you. So what we've got here is a situation where I'm going to Monchique, and now there's a double reason for going. As it turned out, and can you not tell we're in the Mercury retrograde is sort of starting. As it turned out, my friend wasn't able to meet me because a child that was travelling with them, I assume it was heat exhaustion, wasn't feeling well and had to cancel the trip. Now, had I have gone with that sole intention of going to arrange to meet someone and then they don't turn up, I've set myself a single focus, which things can go wrong, things can change, expect the unexpected basically. But because I was already going to get groceries, there was nothing lost, and there's disappointment, yes, but there'll be other times. I go pretty much every Friday, so if you happen to be in the Algarve, just head to Monchique on a Friday, and I'm there at the Intermarché. It's got quite a nice outdoor seating area. I meant to make a video and then completely forgot yesterday, just to show you. But this is the thing, you set yourself up a win-win. I was trying to think of an analogy I could use with going for a single purpose of grocery shopping. I suppose the worst could be that I didn't have funds with me, or I'd left them here and I've gone all the way there and it's like, I forgot to bring any money. Then yeah, that would have been a wasted journey. And of course, there's always the unlikely possibility that you arrange to meet someone, so something goes wrong and you've left your money at home as well, then yeah, that would less likely to happen. This is the thing. And of course, this does dovetail into the topic of boundaries, because what you're actually doing in your world, you're setting yourself boundaries of what you will allow to come in. Slight coughing fit. Anyway, consider these physical bodies are described as vessels, and we're moving into the sort of realms of maritime and import and export. So boundaries, wherever you look and however far back you go, as it were, there are boundaries. So let's take Genesis, the Garden of Eden. The sort of basic concept is it's a walled enclosure, a garden, and there's something outside of it, but there's a boundary to it. And of course, as a young child, you might say, Mum, can I go outside and play? and there'd be a boundary set of yes, as long as you don't go any further than the end of the street, or whatever it happens to be. And of course, I could go down the whole route, which has probably been covered multiple times, about what do you allow in, what do you import. So if you're leaving yourself open, you may have someone who's continuously taking advantage because you've not set a boundary in place. You can see in nature there are boundaries, particularly in the plant kingdom. The temperate regions will be the boundaries of the particular plants, where you'll get something like a cactus will be bounded by how hot it is, as opposed to, I don't know, a fir tree that will thrive better in a colder climate. And there's boundaries to these things. So we need to set boundaries within ourselves. Notice the word set. I'm not going to go into the whole deity mythology stories and whether set's good or bad, but there does need to be boundaries set in this reality, metaphorical ones as much as there are physical ones. One moment. Right, back again. So can we look outside externally and see other boundaries, for example? Well, I would say, and this came, if I remember rightly, it was from Martin Liedtke. When you see a NASA rocket or a plane going through the sky, how it does look like and very much resembles a speedboat going through water. And of course, aircraft get all the water droplets on the wings. There's clearly a boundary. For example, a volcanic eruption. How far can those rocks be thrown up? They never just keep going, they come back down again. But it seems to be that things can come in. I mean, where else does this meteoric iron and things come from? They seem to come from something outside. But trying to break out, which I feel is where this whole idea of a soul trap even comes from. It seems it's not two-way traffic. And I feel in that, if you have a perception where you see the external world is a reflection, that in itself is giving a huge clue. We could also bring into this astrology, the position of different wandering stars or planets, if you prefer to call them that, in relative to different constellations and so on. And there seems to be some sort of electromagnetic effect. Hence we've got this Mercury retrograde season, which affects travel plans, it can affect communications and so on. But that doesn't mean it's all bad either, of course. My smoke kept going out. I didn't want to keep stopping to relight it and keep recording. It's totally irrelevant, which is even me explaining about it. Anyway, back on topic. So there would be a perception that things can come in, but nothing can go out. I would suggest, though, that energy, collective energy, either goes out or it is being harnessed and used in some way within a boundary, shall we say. But looking at that and seeing the external as a reflection, now let's turn this internally. Now forget about your physical shape. I'm about 6 foot tall, and remember there was keep 6 foot apart, so either side of your centre will be 3 foot, so you're actually a sort of sphere of energy. And if you think about it, most things, cells and things, are shown as spheres. The Earth certainly is shown as a sphere, and don't shoot the messenger here. A lot of you say, no, it's flat. I'm not talking about the solid part, I'm talking about its energetic aspect, in the same way I'm talking about our physical body and our aura. Now, if you consider the Earth, whether you take a flat Earth cosmology or a globe model, I think where you have got agreement is there is sort of layers, whether it's the depiction of the sun and the moon in one band and then the stars in another band. There's like two layers for a start, and then there's the other layer between the closest to the actual physical ground, and obviously more than that. But consider also, then we also have layers, and you're building up this toroidal field, you're setting boundaries. Where do I want to go with this now? Let's just break the word boundaries down for a start. This is just free flowing, apart from just writing the word boundary down. These are my notes. That's it. It's just the word boundary, just rearranged. So what I can see in the word boundaries is bound, arise, bounder, rise, bound diaries, bound Aries, and also connected to bound is abound, like abundance, abundance. That also, I feel, comes into this with the etymology. Now the nose starts to run. It's like, are we in Mercury retrograde? It's like little things happening, but just laugh at it. It's determination and the will to get the message out and to respond to a request to explain boundaries. So, approaching a word like the word boundaries, straight away bound Aries, split it in half into the sort of two component parts. So let's look at what bound actually is. Well, to start with, you have the B, which suggests duality. You have your I, and then you have your two circles, an upper and a lower perspective, you could say, or the perception of duality. That's being expressed there. The O is the organic, the whole. It's U, which is the next letter, the O and the U, but we could substitute the O in the vowel shift for an A. So the duality in the gold is what you owe you. There's your world debt. It's what you owe yourself to find out. That's followed by the N, which is the sine wave, the rising, the falling and moving to the right, and then the rising again. The D is the doorway, the deity, the bound, because bound is also an intention. Where are you bound for? What course is your vessel on? Are you walking your spiritual path, you could say? And bound Aries. Well, Aries is taken as the first sign, as meaning a rise. So when you bound Aries, you are putting a restriction on yourself in that sense. You are setting limits. But there's a double aspect to this. There's also, what are you going to import, and what are you going to export from within and take in through your toroidal field. In this reality, you have the reverse being played out. It's an old English word that isn't used so much now, called a bounder, someone who's a villain, a crook, a criminal. You bounder, you. that sort of expression. So what you have is a bounder rise. That's what's being played out. The villains are sort of running the show, and will continue to do so until you set boundaries and arise. clues are always in the words. I suppose we ought to break down Aries or Aries as well. So it starts with the alpha, of course. There's the R, the ray of light, which is the I, which is E, which is energy, and it's S, it's in spirit form. It rises. Look at what's in the middle of Aries. It's I. It sits right in the middle. It's referring to you and I. What else have we got here? Now, if you reverse it and have a little play with it, you actually get rise, abound. So when you go inside yourself, when you come to that realization that you're actually an immortal soul, you will feel the sensation that you are rising inside yourself. Now, if we go back to that tennis player, John McEnroe, it was always featured when the, what do they call them? There's an umpire in tennis, says net or out, and he would challenge the decision and say, "You cannot be serious." And this was repeated and highlighted. It's highlighted for a reason. You cannot be serious. Well, to be serious, it's like a sensation of very compacted, sort of, I definitely know the answer. And that sort of very rigid, very solid feeling. But I know I've said this on a video quite some time ago, I can actually be very serious, I can be deadly serious. But what am I being deadly to? We'll come back to that in a moment. Because these things always have a duality in this reality. There's always more than one perception of looking at these things. So if I'm not serious, or if someone is too serious, it's often you'll get an expression of, "Hey, lighten up." Just think about that, what that really means, lighten up. It's often talked about an energy shift. It all starts within one, so the shift, the jolt that I hope you will experience, is when you sort of slightly prize apart your etheric, your astral, and your eye organization bodies from your physical body. You expand yourself. It's called moving into the age of Jupiter, the age of expansion, because you are growing. So anything that grows needs room to grow. So therefore, you are expanding yourself from within, and you are arising. You are raising yourself up inside yourself. It's nothing to do with what you can physically see with the physical eyes. This is all going on internally, and the only way you'll see it and the only way you'll feel it is to experience it. Sorry, I didn't mean to be looking like I'm talking down to you there. Oh, the page has moved. It's like, what? I can't even read my own writing. That's good, isn't it? There's also bound diaries. If you think about it, books are bound. Writing, it is committing to paper. Paper is made from a sliced up tree, something that was once alive, that has been transformed into a non-living form, although energy-wise it will still hold some of its residue energy of when it was alive. This is why with certain things I feel that the words can seem to lift off the page. You see things in a new way, not something you'll see with the physical. Let's just open the book up instead of folding it back. That might be easier, and then this page might not keep turning over. So the bound diaries, I would suggest here, is also referencing that if time is not as we are told that it is linear, but is a series of loops that, if you can unravel the story, you can look at things in the past and predict and see what comes in the future. You don't need to look any further than just go to Archaics and Chronicon to find out more about that. That's something else I wish to talk about as well. Something I feel that will benefit you hugely. And I'm also in the process of this. I am putting it to the test. I still maintain that this is a diagnostic zone, and therefore everything is being tested. We are being continuously tested the whole time. So where do I want to go now? So rise, just by changing the order. Boundaries can be rise and abound, or a rise is bound. It's your destiny, it's your spiritual path that's being shown in that word. One moment. Wow, fits and starts, coughs and splutters, and breaking out into a sweat. Her hair's like in a ponytail, but underneath it, it's just, yeah, natural shower. Now some of you, not all of you, will follow Archaic's channel, and maybe some of you have come across and found this channel from comments I've left and things. Now, what has sort of been coming up lately is an old channel that disappeared, Brian Austin Lambert, BAL33, and the Empcoe. Now, in that is a huge clue. Now, Empcoe, to my perspective, is no different from calling it a Phoenix event, electromagnetic plasma discharge. Excuse me. Here is the big clue, and I can also bring in, and I'd refer you for a better explanation about magnetism to Theora Opophasis channel. That's Ken Wheeler. So effectively, you've got the dielectric, which is the potential. The magnetism is the extrinsic that will return back. It's basically your toroidal field. I'm going to tie this all together in a moment. But electromagnetic plasma changeover events, so it implies like a flip of polarity for a start. As the way I see it, it works like magnetism. As Ken Wheeler explains it, it is the dielectric at the center of a magnet where there is absolutely no resistance whatsoever that actually draws the two magnets together. It is not magnetic attraction the way it's been spun. So how does this come in when we're talking in terms of us in these physical bodies? The clue here is in the electromagnetic plasma. It's going to be drawn to something on the same frequency, or it is going to go for a particular frequency. Therefore, if you can sort out your internal frequency, i.e. if you are coming from your heart space and you are doing things in a benevolent way, you are not being drawn in to pick a side, you are not importing all these scripts, all these stories that are being shown in the external world, enticing you, being the adversary. So come, let me tempt you, come and look at this, pick a side. How do you feel about this event? I've questioned already in the last week. There's been a lot of media reports about stabbings and things, random stabbings going on. Think about the long-term effect of how the collective are going to feel for a start. What signal that is going to send through waves of populations. Because it's going to get to the point where these are going to become meaningless almost, because the frequency, and this is the key word, the frequency of which these reports will keep coming. This is just another step. But electromagnetic plasma, let's come back to that again. What frequency are you generating out from yourself? Remember, we're talking about the earth, we're talking about the world, we're talking about the physical body, which is made up of components and minerals of the earth. What it says in scriptures about man being formed from the dust, from the clay of the earth, it's referencing that these physical bodies are part of this reality. Therefore, they consist of all the minerals and things, and you've got traces throughout the blood, micro amounts on probably the relative scale of a human body to the size of the earth. But the blueprint is exactly the same. But the external world is a reflection. So whereas things are coming in and nothing is getting out, now if you flip that inside yourself, nothing is getting in, but you are able to radiate out. What a game changer that would be. Because are you not then meeting something halfway? Are you not finding that fine line between the yin and the yang by altering the frequency inside yourself that will now, you won't be affected by this electromagnetic plasma. You will create such a toroidal field. This is something I've said before on video, and I've said to many times to many people about this. What was shown in the Matrix film, the original film, with was it Neo, and you've got the agents, and they fired the little projectiles, and they've just suspended. Like they're held by thought, and then they just drop. This has been shown on many YouTube videos and on videos coming up on Facebook. I can't remember where it was, with cameras on a rocket that is supposed to hit the dome. There's a thud and it's still spinning, but it can't penetrate, but at the same time the impact has been absorbed. It doesn't shatter the glass ceiling, as it were, either. Consider now the universe is you inverse, so therefore also the earth is the heart. It's now working the other way. You're pushing out and radiating out an energy, your own electromagnetic plasma, your own EMP, which is actually the me. That saying about the meek shall inherit the earth. The me key, which the magnetism and the electricity is the key. It's what you generate inside yourself. It's when you strengthen up your aura and you feel no fear, you realize you are an immortal soul, to put it in archaic language here. The way Jason explains it on the video he's just posted up, I can say I've seen evidence of what's being pointed to. Evidence that was pointed out to me from Julia of Simplicity Revealed channel, when she said to me last year, after I've been cutting bramble several times, and I'm covered in all these cuts and blood has run down my arms and dried, and I didn't even notice. But by the next day, the cuts have cleared up. Now imagine with a change of atmosphere, i.e. the vapor can be coming back. When Jason talks about cuts will heal in seconds, deeper cuts will heal within a day, and so on, I also consider, will we even need sleep? This is a test So think of it also like a computer game. You have to complete level 16 to get the congratulations, to be able to step out the game, as it were. Right, back again. Where was I? Yeah, so you've got this picture of an apocalypse. Actually, let's do a little thought experiment here. You're standing there, and you can put any picture you want to this, but I'm going to use the analogy. You've got a 100-foot tsunami. This wall of water is coming towards you. How are you going to feel in that moment? I would imagine pretty useless, pretty powerless. But what if by that stage, we're talking 15 years' time, you're able to meet it head on and say, yeah, come on then, bring it on. Because you know, and you can, by that stage, you'll probably even be able to see your own aura. And you'll see how strong it is and how impenetrable it is. And that tsunami will just go round you. You'll be like Sonic the Hedgehog underwater. You'll be in your own bubble, your own reality bubble, you could say, your own toroidal field. There's a micro and the macro. So if the Earth has a field, a toroidal field, a magnetic field around it, then, and we also have this as well. This is shown by different light spectrums of photography, aura photography you can get at these well-being and psychic fair things. And you see all the colours and things in that. It's just the physical eyes can't see it, but some have the psychic gift and they can see colours and things. I can, or things are shown to me. I wouldn't say I have mastery over the thing where I can switch on and see everybody. It's just made apparent to me as and when I need to see it, I feel is a better explanation. But even from a sort of mundane, practical, physical sense, some of these massive boulders, it's like, I can't move that. Well, I'd like you to consider like a mobile phone, a cell phone. The circuitry is all in there. The capabilities of that device are going to be dependent on the app that you download to it. What apps you accept onto that device are therefore going to affect the capabilities of that device. So let's think about that with the coming of the vapor canopy and reactivated DNA. I quite like the idea of being able to pick up these massive rocks and put them in place. And it may be with reproduction rates of different animals and things, these cats, for example, that are here. What if I'm suddenly faced with something the size of a lion? Is it still going to see me in the same way? But partly in jest I say that because I'm not taking that seriously from the point of view that there is this deep-rooted feeling inside that can beat this, can get through this, no matter what is thrown, no matter what is shown in this realm of illusion. I mean, you've only got to look at nature, how it adapts. There is nothing so radical that will upset the balance. So therefore, when we're talking about the 2046 and the Nemesis object falling from the sky and all these demons coming out and all the depravity and things, well, there'll be a yin-yang balance, surely. So surely the immortal souls that now are going to be near impossible to kill, these demons aren't going to be any match for anyway. You'll be pretty indestructible. How does that sound? How would you like to draw out that true warrior inside yourself? Some of you say you can't find your spiritual path. I say it's because the situation hasn't arrived for that to come out in you. It may be the 2046 event that actually does bring that out. You may discover that inside you is this warrior, this hero, like the heroes of old, the men of renown. History repeats. It starts and finishes the same way. That Revelations sets the scene for Genesis. It's creating a loop of a never-ending story. But there is a way out of it. It's the ampersand. It looks like an 8, but it's got a little stalk bit that comes off in the middle and to the right. It's the fused A and E. It's the all and the everything. We had to interrupt for a cough break that time. Cool, it's all happening. So, that's 15 years away before all this starts. So I'm going to give you my position. I don't mean geographical position, that's in the Algarve. My resolve, my resolve on the next 15 years. I'll take my chances where I am. It's high enough above sea level. It's not particularly prone to quaking ground, although I believe it has happened here a few years ago. But really, turn the question round. Where is the safe place to go in the world? I'll take my chances and hold to that belief of recognition of the immortal soul inside myself. I will turn the AIX and meet it with an XIA, realizing that this reality is the cross, the burden to which you need to find the I. Your body is the cross. What you nail yourself to, what belief system you hold to becomes your cross. It's what you fix yourself to. That is the crux I fiction of it all. But when you raise yourself off of that cross, the I realizing that you are the alpha. You have it within you because you are made up of the same components as a physical body of this reality. This reality has all the component parts of what created it, therefore we also have it. That is backed up in scriptures as well. It is reference, are they to be like us? You don't need to eat any fruit, you just observe. You hopefully have that inner discernment to know the difference between good and bad. It's shown in so many ways. Look at what else is being played out at the moment as well. With these incidents that are starting to pop up, knife attacks and so on. The way it'll be spun is it'll be about uncontrolled borders, shall we say. No boundaries, in other words, because it's a reflection. It's telling you to do the opposite. It's telling you to set your own boundaries. That was also shown in 2020. This thing didn't discriminate because your surname changed. It affected every family, surely. Where were the boundaries to that? That is telling you about having boundaries and not having boundaries, what you allow in, what you exclude, what is acceptable in your world and what is not acceptable in your world. It comes down to what sort of world do you want to see? What sort of world are you going to see? But what about the middle path of being able to observe it all and knowing that it's not going to affect you as well, because you've got your own power source. You know, I'd like to see all the nations. I'd like to see the real United Nations. Now, that isn't going to be flags. That's going to be every individual soul in a physical body. That is your flag, because you are a sovereign being. Therefore, you are your own nation. You are your own U-inverse. You are your own universe. You are your own earth. You are an immortal soul. You're just in a game which is a diagnostic zone. But the way out of it, and there is a way out of it, is to go back to the all, from the AIX to the XIA. You're flipping the polarity on it. You're reflecting it back, being the light in the world, the radiating out, in other words. So I don't know about you, but bring it on 2040, 2046 and 2052, because If we're going to be pretty much indestructible, then what is there to fear, really? You're going to be put through tests. That is certain, because you have to be put through tests. How are you going to be allowed to do something? This is something expressed in the working world. You're not going to be allowed to use the equipment until you have been trained to use it. The series of tests that you're being put through, which are determined by whether you've set boundaries or not, it's going to determine how many tests you have to go through. But with each level, it's a stepping up all the time. If you've learned the lesson, of course. Otherwise, you just keep it's rinse and repeat. But you can get through this. Maybe that is the answer, that the ones that will be left here will be pretty much indestructible and here to finish. That is the purpose of actually being here, and it's the sorting out which are, shall we say, the 144,000 that have made the grade. Just to put it in the sort of mundane material terms. But it's just a perception, but it ties in with this word boundary, and ties in with reflecting on everything and seeing what the external is showing you. Taking that wire of that champagne cork, looking at one end, realizing there is another end. It's not a separate piece of wire, it's just got a twist in it. All you've got to do is undo the twist and see it's the same piece of wire, but you're just looking at one polarity and not seeing the other polarity, and not realizing there's a midway point between both. So, just as a quick recap, because we're up to 41 minutes. This is probably one of the longest videos I've done. But it was an excellent suggestion, boundaries. You are in control. It doesn't matter what. It's going to come down to what your perceptions of boundaries are, whether you class it as family, whether you class it as nation, as tribe, being of a geographical location, and you identify with this or that. But obviously there is some commonality, but you've also got to consider if those around you are draining your energy as well. It's because you've not set boundaries. And there may only be one way to do that, and that is to relocate, remove yourself from the situation. Regardless of what anybody else does or think, at the end of the day, you do you. You've got to decide for yourself. You haven't got to, but it would be preferable to be in control of yourself and be able to make decisions for yourself. And so yeah, I'm going to take the chances over the next 15 years and run with this. It feels right. What has been shown so far is confirming this. So whether you want to call it the Phoenix event, the Empcoe, to me it's the same thing. But I feel if you meet this fearless, and you've got that toroidal field so resilient, that is your spiritual armor that is actually going to get you through this. And there is, if you can get to that level, then what really is there to fear? No matter what you're faced with, you will be able to overcome it. It's all an unknown quantity at the moment, but it requires stepping into the unknown to be able to progress, surely. So, yeah, recap. So, set yourself up, look at the way the system does things. It's not about picking a side, it's setting up a win-win situation. You can do that for yourself and apply that to your daily life. So don't just go with a intention of this, and then if something happens that's outside of your control, then you're going to be disappointed or you've had a wasted trip. But if you've got a secondary or even a third thing that you can also incorporate into that, notice incorporate, because that's something else that is shown in the external about incorporation. You just got to flip the polarity on what is presented to you and see it's a mirror. And just like a mirror, the left goes right when the right goes left. On the linear, the polarity is swapped over, although it looks the same, it looks identical. But remember, that reflection can't do anything until you do. That requires you to set your boundaries in the metaphorical and possibly in the physical. Because if you don't, I'm pretty certain it's readily apparent that there is a system that will set boundaries and tell you where you can go, where you can't go, what you can do, what you can't do, and they will set boundaries upon you. But we could take this to the ultimate of Mad Max 3 Beyond the Thunderdome. 2 men enter, 1 man leave. So which one's going to come out? Is it going to be the mortal, or is it going to be the immortal soul that rises above? You choose where your boundaries are, surely. As always, unconditional love to you all.